Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're talking about On the Line, the latest Mel Gibson film. The story is about a shock jock DJ in LA who's got the late night graveyard shift. He's an old dog, set in his ways, bit of a bully, but he gets a call from someone who has kidnapped his family and wants him to confess his sins. Yeah, that kind of fanfare. So, let's get into this. Before I start, I do need to say, with this film in particular, I need to talk about the spoiler because there is a twist in this film, and it's a slap in the face. Yes. The director, Ramon Boulanger, essentially has gone, you know what? You know what? Swivel. Swivel. Shut up. So yeah, let's get into this. Mel Gibson plays Elvis Cooney. At the start of the film, he kisses his wife and his child, heads off to the studio for the late night shift. And he's instantly butting heads with people. The first person he comes into contact with is a security guard, an Indian security guard whose name he can't pronounce. Therefore, he says, well, I'm going to call you Bob. I'm assuming this is meant to be funny, but it just really comes across as cringy. And then there's like a kind of a cult guy that turns up and like wants to go to the studio. If this is the thing of red herring, then it didn't work. Anyway, he meets up with a fellow DJ, the 8 p.m. host, Justin, played by Kevin Dillon, and they instantly button heads. It looks like that Mel Gibson's character wants to take his time slot, because obviously, why wouldn't you? 8 p.m. is the now time rather than the graveyard shift. Then he comes across Sam, the station manager. There may or may not have been a history between them. It's not really seen, and I don't think her character even really comes into it anymore, apart from this one bit where she's just dumping some exposition that he needs to get more ratings. He's plateaued. He's not following his social media accounts. He doesn't care, because why should he? He's, you know, an old tooth, an old dog. He doesn't need that. Yeah, and then he goes into the studio, and we're introduced to Mary, his co-host, or sorry, his producer and co-host. And there's a new guy called Dylan. He's the board operator. And instantly at this point, you know something's a little off, because this new guy is far too wanting to shake hands, and then Mel Gibson's character's like, get out of here. Do you not know who I am? You don't touch me. You don't come near me. Elvis instantly hazes Dylan when they're on the air. When Dylan infers that Elvis may be a bit too old, he goes, get the fuck out of here. Come on. You know, live on air, he's firing this guy. Very Howard Stern move to make, but then just goes, come back in. It was all a joke. We're just joking. We're all buddies here. We're all fine. Anyway, a bit of a time lapse. He's been on the air. He's been talking about relationship issues, about other things, until we meet Gary. Gary. Oh, Gary. One word of advice. I would never call your main antagonist or villain Gary, because Gary sounds like a name of someone who would help you move your sofa if you were moving houses. Gary is the guy down the pub that maybe's had a few too many drinks and like you need to get him an Uber home sort of thing. Gary's fine, but Gary as a villain name is not. Anyway, Gary introduces himself and says that he's got dark thoughts. He's wanting to do stuff, and obviously, you know, Elvis is like, hey, don't worry about it. Listen to my soothing voice. It'll all be okay. Until we hear the smash of glass. Gary is going to someone's house. It transpires then that actually Gary is in Elvis's house and has kidnapped his wife and child. But that's not where it ends. Gary has actually taken them to the studio. They're in the studio and they're tied up somewhere. And now Elvis will need to confess his sins and run a gauntlet of little trials and tasks, very Saw-esque style, until Gary is satisfied. Why has Gary got this beef with Elvis? Well, it transpires that someone who he loved used to work at the studio, and Elvis did not treat her very well. So we find out throughout the course of the story that Elvis has cheated on his wife with Mary, his co-producer. Also that he is just basically a dick of a human being and doesn't treat people very nice. Yeah, and this is where the film kind of climaxes to a point where Elvis has taken Dylan under his wing. They're going out, they're running around. Dylan is Elvis's Robin to his Batman. There's a few areas where they're like going through elevator shafts, a bit Die Hard. There's a cleaner. There's a whole subplot, well, not really a subplot. There's a character that turns up who's a cleaner that tackles them. They have a bit of a fight. It finds out, no, actually this cleaner has been stealing laptops, and that's why he's still in the studio. Gary, by the way, is a demolitions expert, and he's, if you're thinking like, well, if this is live on air, why haven't the police come? And you'd be right. There is a moment where Elvis goes down to the reception area. The security guard, Bob, has been killed, and there's C4 attached to all the doors. A police officer turns up and says, you know, open the door. They can't do that. Gary has now access to the PA system. Somehow he's a tech genius, wonder mind, who has been able to hack the system. He has access to the PA. He has access to the cameras. He knows where Elvis is at every time. It sort of turns into a ramshackle comic book style Batman, Riddler, you know, thing. Yeah, and it builds to a point where Dylan has had to see these horrific events. There's the other DJ guy who is killed. There's a lot of other people killed on the way, but they find out that Gary has taken control of the main studio hub. So they go there. And this is where the twist comes in. So all I'm going to say now is, if you do not want to know what the twist of this movie is, then please skip ahead. I'm going to put a timestamp here, maybe here, maybe there. I'm going to put a timestamp. If you don't want to know the twist of this film, then skip ahead to that time. And in the meantime, I'll give you a few seconds to decide on that. How's your day? How you doing? You good? Looking forward to the weekend? Right. The twist of this film, dear viewers, it was all a prank. It was all a prank. Yes. They get to a point where Greg is holding like a detonator. He says he's going to blow everyone out. There's a bit of a Mexican standoff. It doesn't matter. It's all a prank. This is all for the case of hazing, once again, Dylan. This elaborate prank is almost as bad as it was all a dream. And this is where I just instantly switch off. You know what? I called it. Halfway through the film, I turned around to my girlfriend and I groaned. And I put my head in my hands and I went, this is going to be a prank, isn't it? And I called it because it's so telegraphed and you can see it coming a mile off. Yeah, but there's a prank within a prank. So the traumatized Dylan stumbles back when everyone jumps out going, ha ha, surprise, surprise. He stumbles back and does a Die Hard where he falls down the stairs and breaks his neck, and Mel Gibson's character is then like, oh no, what have we done? We took it too far. If this is meant to be like a postmodernism War of the Worlds, it did not work. The dialogue is really bad in this film. The characters are very 2D, not fleshed out at all. We're following Elvis and Dylan for the most of the film. We don't really know what's happening with the Mary, with the other people. As I said before, the station manager, Sam, I think we only see her once in that early segment just to kind of dump exposition to say, like, you know, you're a dick. Yeah, it's not a good film. But sorry, the twist within the twist as well is that then we cut to next day. He's walking out. Mel Gibson's character is like, oh no, this was all a prank. This was, what have we done? We've killed someone we weren't meant to. But no, he's alive. The prank was on him, really. Yeah. This was a direct slap to the face of the audience, I felt. I don't know if this is a French thing. I don't know how we got to this kind of point of this preposterous climax. You feel cheated. You just feel cheated. As an audience member, you think, I've invested my time in watching your film. And as I said, it is a good premise. I love that kind of, we've got your family, you know, you've got these things to do, we're in a radio station. But it just went off the deep end. I feel like there was people here taking drugs and going, you know what would be really good, actually, we don't really have an ending to this. This is all a prank, right? Hey, Mel, we know that you do pranks to people when you're in films and stuff. Let's just do that. Seriously? No. Unsurprisingly, this is on a limited theatrical release and is available on demand. But I think you should definitely watch Pontypool. There's other films out there that are dealing with the whole like radio disc jockey thing, and Feed as well with Eddie Marsden. That's a really good one. Not horror as such, more of a thriller, but I don't know what this was meant to be. I think at some point there was meant to be some Agatha Christie whodunit element to this, because we're introduced to so many characters that have nothing involved in this. Mary, who's the co-producer, you think maybe, oh, okay, she denies that they had an affair throughout, you know, maybe she's got some beef with him. You've got this random guy who I think is the kind of line manager, but he has nothing really to do in it. Like, what's his story? Dylan, at one point, early on, I did think that maybe Dylan, because he's new to the kind of crew, that maybe he's involved. There's a cult member guy who turns up earlier on, just a blatant red herring to kind of go like, oh, he's Gary. And then you have Gary when you turn up at the end and it's like, well, okay, so maybe there was a woman. Listen, doesn't matter. Avoid this film. Out of 10, this is like a 2-star at the most. And I would have given it a 1-star only because of the fact that I thought the premise was really good. I really enjoyed the first act. Is actually really good. It just devolves, it cascades to this nonsensical bullshit. And if you're gonna insult the audience by just doing got you, it's just a prank, which I called out. I'm one of those kind of people. I like to read ahead, and I think a lot of people do that as well when they're watching films, especially thriller films. That you want to find out who was this guy, was that guy. In your head, you're internalizing the plot, because you want to be surprised. You don't want to be surprised by the old Dallas technique of it was all a dream. In this case, it was all a prank. It just infuriated me when that happened, and I hope you don't have to go through that. But anyway, this was my review of On the Line. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I didn't ramble too much. And if you liked it, then, like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.